Come on in. Let's start the afternoon drive. Guess I'm gonna have to put these windows up. Burn some of this AC. Always a good sign when you got to turn a little bit of AC on. That means that winter is, well, not winter, but the cold period, which we didn't really have a real winter down here, but anything can happen in Texas. All right. I'm not going to tarry too long waiting around on anybody to get on. Let's just get on into it. The day that Lazarus stood up. Just want to have a little story time this afternoon. It's always good to have always a good time to have a good old story session. Let's see, who is that? Peace, Sister Zeta. Good to hear from you. Almighty. Let's see. I think the last time we were on, we talked about Samson and Delilah. And I wanted to tell another little story that goes right along with Samson and Delilah. And that's the story of Lazarus. And just to recap, Samson hooked up with Delilah, and she wanted to know the secret to his strength. And 3 times he denied her the truth, you know. And the 4th time he gave in and told her the real secret of his strength. He ends up with a shaved head, and his eyes are gouged out. But one of the most significant parts of the story is the number 4. And we see that he had to transition into his lower state before he could realize his true power. All along, Samson's power had been his physical strength. But when he lost his hair, which is representing his wisdom, his knowledge, and he lost his physical eyesight, he had to rely on something inward to guide him. But again, it was all about the number 4. Well, we see in the story with Lazarus, who's the brother of Martha and Mary Magdalene. We see that Martha comes and finds the Christ figure and says, Lazarus is dead, and he's been in his tomb for 4 days and he stinks. And in a nutshell, Jesus shows up on the scene, and he tells them, roll that stone away, and he calls forth Lazarus. Now, part of what I want to do with just this little discussion is use it as an example to show you how symbolism is embedded in these stories and how they all connect, and how they're not talking about what you all know by now, no historical events, but they're talking about states of consciousness of your own mind. And here's something very important to keep in mind, is that although the language sounds dated and old, and by the programming that's been put on us, we automatically think, well, let's see, if David came around this time and Samuel was this time, well, Samson had to be in 1600 BC, and that's a trap. And they have all these Bible theologians who put out these theories about, well, so-and-so had to have been in the land of this and that, and da-da-da-da. And the goal is it's not about to ever elucidate or give you any real clarity. The goal is just to get your mind into the mindset of thinking of these people or these characters as historical, period. So they'll have somebody come from Oxford, somebody come from King's College, this and that, and they'll throw out these theories and talk around in circles, but it never really reveals what the real true meaning. None of these things were ever historical. And the thing is, a lot of those, mainly, I ain't gonna say all, but the vast majority are talking about future events. The misconception is that Revelation is the only end time story. I said this before on the radio, and I still hold true to this. Every book in the Bible has an end time story. Several end time stories in it. The story of Samson. Oh, here's another one. In one story, they will give you the creation and the end. Now let's just take the story of Samson. When Samson meets Delilah, that is the creation story right there. The moment they meet, that's a creation story. The moment that they start interacting and she's trying to get him to give up the secrets to his power, they're talking about creation. Then that's why they use the number 4. Let me give you an example. In your mouth, the third molar on each side, top and bottom, is called your wisdom tooth. Now check this out. We know, or if you don't know, you're going to know now, your pineal gland is larger as a child. If you ever watch a baby, I watch my babies, why do they lay on their back and look up at the ceiling and be laughing like they're being entertained by something? And you look up at the ceiling and you don't see nothing. Well, what is this child seeing that's entertaining this child? Why is it a baby sleeps and laughs and giggles in their sleep? What in the world what experience could this child have to draw on? It is a past life, or several of them. And because their pineal gland is so large at the time and it's so expanded, because they have not yet been indoctrinated with just a personality yet. Like Earth, Wind, and Fire say, a child is born with a heart of gold. The ways of the world makes his heart turn cold. So that baby, that heart is just wide open. That pineal gland is wide open. And they're looking up and they seeing all types of stuff. Well, by the time they get to like 4 years old, primary teeth, not four, 1 year old, primary teeth start coming in. Okay. Now, around about 4, they start falling out. Okay. Number 4. Now, the key is though, when you get to your teenage years or your early 20s, something happens. All of your wisdom teeth all of a sudden start coming in. Now, here's the great paradox. The great paradox is this: they are called wisdom teeth, but they don't represent wisdom. They represent stupidity. Once you become a teenager, you become very stupid. And y'all can attest to this. We all can attest to this. How stupid you are in your teenage years and your early 20s. That's why it's called freshman sophomore. Sophomore means wise fool. You think you know too much. You think you know it all. Okay? So your wisdom teeth come in, that represents you are completely locked down into the physical world now. Because now you think you have arrived. Now you think you know who you really are. Now you think you're damn an adult. Now you think you talk to your mom and your daddy. See how this thing works? When those four wisdom teeth come in, that represents you completely being locked down into a world of 3 dimensions. That is why in the story, Samson, it takes him 4 times before he is completely subdued into the world of illusion, physicality. And what it is a creation story. It is talking about the covenant. See, although it looks like Samson is tricked, but listen to it. The woman keep telling Samson, I want to know your power so I can fuck you up. She asked him once, and she sent her boys in there to try to fuck him up. So they like, is Samson retarded? Samson said, she asked him again, oh, Samson, you lied. That's fucked up, Samson. Tell me what's your secret. Samson tell her something else. Second time. And the boys in again try to fuck him up. Samson throw him off. She asked this nigga a 3rd time. Samson. So obviously Samson knew what was going to befall him. He knew she's asking because she wants to double his ass over. But Samson gives it up anyway. That is a sign that the story was not about trickery, because Samson was a willing participant. So that's how you know it's also a creation story. It's saying Samson is representing your soul accepting this covenant to be a human. The number 4. All right. When Samson then realizes his handicap, okay, he's now human, and he's now realizing how handicapped he is. That's why his eyes are gouged out. That means he's lost his spiritual eyesight. Although the story is presented to where his physical eyesight has been taken away, it's a double to it. There's a double to the story. It's supposed to represent he's lost his spiritual eyesight. He has lost his hair. That's his knowledge, his wisdom of who he was. So Samson goes inside of himself. He restores his power and he tears the whole thing down. That's the end time story. All in one story. They told you the beginning and the end, all in one story. Samson, Book of Judges, 16th chapter. The book of Revelations is not the only, that's the trick, or one of many tricks. Or maybe, no, that's not called a trick. One of many hidden things that's not realized. Daniel and Revelations are not the only end time books. All of them are. Genesis is not the only creation story or creation book. All of them are. So, same thing applies to Lazarus. Same story. When Lazarus dies and goes into the cave, that's a creation story. And when Lazarus comes up out of the tomb, of course, that's an end time story. Now, let's take it out of the philosophical and let's just bring it into everyday life. How can we apply this stuff to where it makes sense in your everyday life? Winston Churchill, if I dare reference somebody like, but hell, everybody got something of value. He had a quote, and I used to know it. He said, to change is to improve. To change often is to be perfect. I think that's kind of, to change is to improve. To change often is to be perfect. All these stories that we talk about are stories of change. The most difficult thing in the universe to deal with is change. You can name anything. It's not so much the state of whatever your condition, it is the actual volcanic or what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. It is the I just say volcanic state of change, where things are just erupting. You think you're comfortable right here, and then bam, something comes and hits, and then bam, something else comes, and bam, here something else comes. Those stories are stories of change. Of change. How can I say that? It's because I know it. I know for sure. I know I know 399 fucking percent sure about what I'm saying right now. Change is the ultimate, I'm not going to say enemy, it's the ultimate test. Any story you see about somebody going through shit in any mythology, it's really the real problem was the change, the journey. So how can you cope with all this and in just your everyday life? One is to, if I could maybe talk to myself, let's say 8 or 9 years ago, and things are starting to become volcanic and unravel, which we know everything happens for a reason. I think I would tell myself to be still. Pay attention, look around you. But of course, that's easy to say from a hindsight position, because you've been through the shit and you've been through the change. So although we say, if I could do this over, I would have done this, I would have done it this way, it wouldn't have been right, because you wouldn't have been through the constriction that was necessary to make you so expansive now. And then that comes down to people who've done dirty shit to you. Some of us are carrying trauma. I still carry trauma from my childhood. You know, some of it family, some of it schoolmates, uh, feeling left out. And, you know, how do you come and reconcile that shit? You know, and I see how it plays out. Well, part they say this is, you know, the whole thing of Aquarius, you know, being a loner. I'm not so sure if that's about me being an Aquarius or that's just me, you know. But I'll tell you one thing about me. I'll write a person off and they'll not know that I even wrote them off. And I'm not saying that to brag. I don't necessarily think that's good. I'll write a motherfucker off. A person can say something to me and they could have said it 6 months ago and it's still bouncing around in my head. I'd be like, you know, that was some fucked up shit. And I might not have really paid it no attention at the moment, but later on, but it'll keep dancing around in my head, and I'm prone to get angry about that shit, and don't fuck with them no more. Now it's not that I won't tell somebody, because I will, but I don't. Sometimes I don't feel like it's even worth it. But the point of what I'm trying to say is some of that is because of some unresolved issues from my childhood. And you know, see, the reason I get on here, and I've lived a lot of my life trying to pretend like I was dumb. Because a lot of my childhood was me being ridiculed because of what was my perceived intelligence. That's something I've been wanting to do, and I'm still on the point here of the number 4, Lazarus Sampson. I'm gonna tell you when all the shit started for me as a child. It started in the 2nd grade. And it's very funny because when I go back through my life, the number 5 has always represented some form of very eruptive change for me. Painful change. As I go back and reflect on these 41 years, 4 and 1. When I was in the 2nd grade, they took me into a classroom and they had me sit down and take a test. I didn't know what it was for. Well, it turned out it was an IQ test. And back then, I tested at 131. Now, according to, I looked this up like a few months ago. I forgot about it. They say 2% of the population has an IQ of 131 or higher. Now, if you do the math, 1 plus 3 plus 1 equals 5. From that moment that I got that goddamn score back on that IQ test, I started having more problems where, you know, I remember in 2nd grade in Miss Blankenship's class, I had to fight Kevin Wooten, Mark Toll, Lamar Shaw, all in one motherfucking, in a matter of weeks. And back then, Mark and Lamar thought they knew karate. Because, you know, they daddies had them in karate and shit. But I just remember having to fight these motherfuckers in the bathroom. For nothing I had done to them, it all started with that fucking IQ test. because they started taking me out of class, and back then they call it gifted and talented, and they would put me in these with Miss Bessie Rose was the teacher, and we would just go and just learn like little extra stuff that was above the curriculum. Like we might learn some stuff about cooking, or I can't remember what all. I remember one time she took us to her house and we made some orange chicken, you know, but I can't remember what all we did with gifted and talented. But from that moment, after that 1-3-1, that 5, all fucking hell broke loose. And some of my family members would say stuff like, oh, you got all that book sense, but you ain't got no common sense. That shit cut. You know why it cut so deep? Because at school, they already make me feel like an outcast because I got a fucking brain. And then to hear that, you know, from your family, and motherfuckers don't think that's nothing, but for a child, that's traumatizing, because now I'm like, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? So I realized when I watched Brother Panic's thing, he talked about how something happened. He was watching some shit, and it reminded him he was holding back tears and wondering why this and that. You know, that was probably the most powerful expression that he's ever or offering that he's ever given, because that was some real shit right there. And it made me start thinking, why is it that I'll write a person off so, and I hit the nail on the head, because they remind me of the way it felt as a child for people to try to ridicule me because of this motherfucker right here. So when that woman a lady put up a thing on YouTube about how there's a lot of book pushers out here, and it was directed at me. And for a whole year, I've been going off about that shit. A woman on YouTube that I had met put up some shit like ridiculing people for telling people about reading. I got irate. And I realized, well, what? I'm thinking, who gives a fuck about what this motherfucker think? But why did it hit so hard? Because it reminded me of that feeling of people making out like something was wrong with me because I had a fucking brain. So now, this is why I don't try to one bit hide my intelligence. Matter of fact, what I'm trying to do is recover. Because see, I feel like I lost a lot of years by not cultivating my mind as best I could have. I burned up a lot of brain cells. You know, I did a whole lot of fucked up shit. And I feel like I'm in recovery right now. You know? So, when I get on this platform and talk, it's kind of therapeutic for me. The real Jamal. Before I started playing football, before I started lifting weights, you know, before I did all these other things, this and that, before anything else, I was about exploring. Yes. My uncle would get me these little science sets for Christmas, you know, where I, you know, pretend like you're the mad scientist is gonna make a bomb and some shit. Oh, you shouldn't say that shit. I don't fucking YouTube. You know, and all of that shit, I buried it. So, but all of it comes back around these numbers, I'm telling you. So you have 4 brings you in, but 4 also starts to transition you out. But then what's the next step after 4? It's 5. And what is 5? Okay, so Jesus goes to the cross. right? You always Jesus in a picture with his heart exposed. Well, your heart is your fourth chakra, and your fourth chakra is where you start crossing over. You know, everybody talks about all this heart chakra shit, but you know, it's really ain't complicated. It's just keep it real with yourself so that you can cross over. So Jesus goes to the cross, which is four directions, north, south, east, west, that converge at one point. That one point is number 5. So as a child, I had to bear my cross early in the 2nd grade, crucified. And then if I go through the rest of my life, I start seeing all these different things that have happened around these fives, 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 fives. But I also know that your death in one area is your life in another. Your death in one area is your life in another. Some doors have to close so that some doors can open. That is the whole ethos behind creation. Period. Done deal. That's the end of the story. Something had to change. Something was so expansive that there was nothing else for it to do. And let me tell you something else about at the same year, 1983, I'm in the 2nd grade. I think I was in the 2nd grade. Yep, I was in the 2nd grade. And now I finally get it. My grandmother Mary, died when I was 2nd grade. Now, what happened was, and I think this was when, now understanding all this shit, I gotta do the math. 1983, 1 and 9 is 10, 11, 22. God damn, adds up to a 4. Okay, so let me tell you what happened. When my grandmother died, and you know, I went through the grieving, you know, because I loved my grandmama. So I cried and cried, but what bothered me the most was one night I was laying in bed. Now you gotta think, I'm like six years old at the time. I'm laying in bed and I could not sleep because what bothered me was they told me, my family told me, well, Grandmama Mary went to heaven and she's gonna live there forever. And at that point, I tried to fathom what forever is. And what bothered me was I said, well, and it took me damn near 40 years to understand why it bothered me so. It's that I envisioned, you know, they give you all these pictures. So as a child, you think this is what it's gonna be. I envisioned a big golden gate and a bunch of people walking around in robes, white robes, and then they fucked me up worse. They said, oh, you're not gonna be able to see anybody when you go to heaven because you won't have a body. So I'm like, oh shit. So let me scrap the image that I had in my head. Now I gotta think of a bunch of invisible people walking around. And I'm like, well, what the fuck are they gonna do? You mean for the rest of eternity, it's just gonna be nothing? That's not, you know, I'm like, well, that's it? And that bothered me for 30 something years. And I never put 2 and 2 together that was the same time when all of my problems started at school. That same year. So as I look back, it was like that was some type of little initiation that I didn't know nothing about. So now I understand what bothered me so. Because there was nothing that they spoke to me about that addressed change. That's why I was bothered. My soul knew that there can be no existence without change. Change is inevitable. Why did God have to create? Because if not, God does not exist anymore. Everything has to move. Everything has to change. So we look at these old stories in the Bible and we get caught up in the good side and the bad side. You know, old Delilah, that old harlot, oh, that old Satan. Get under my feet, Satan. Get behind me, Satan. I rebuke you. well, well, what's the purpose of Jesus if there ain't no Satan? If you just want to believe in the characters. How does Job have a story of overcoming if he didn't have no shit to overcome? How does Moses truly know that he's a leader? How does Moses know a damn thing about faith if he never see the Red Sea part? How do you know that you got some power until you had to use that shit? Until then, the shit's all theory. It's all conjecture. And I'm gonna tell you something. When the time comes when you have to put all of this stuff that we talk about to work, you're gonna be scared out your motherfucking mind. Don't let nobody run that bullshit down to you. Oh, you gonna be scared, Jack. Until you. Are we back? Oh, I didn't know we had comments. Does the number 4 that you speak of, does that relate to the elements energy? Yeah. Yeah. You are the 5th element. They speak of that concept in the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel saw 4, let's call them figures, around him. And they had all these strange, monstrous looking faces. Well, if Ezekiel is the wheel that's within the wheel. He's the spoke. It's him. So Ezekiel sees the other 4 elements around him. And him. And he prostrates. He sees God's feet. He prostrates and God stands him up. Saying, oh no, you're the one. You stand up. You're the one. You're the I am. And he says, open your mouth. Eat this scroll. That's got to be some of the most powerful shit. Right there. Eat this motherfucking scroll. And Ezekiel says, oh, it tastes like honey. Man. But what I was saying is that it's going to come a time the homie Christians say, well, you're going to have to get off the bench and you're going to have to get out and play. And what spirit will do is give you enough fucked up shit. Man. Shit on you. You think, you'd be like, how did the motherfucking weatherman not report that shit was going to be in the motherfucking... I didn't know it was raining shit. None of them motherfuckers told me. They said the sun was gonna be out. But it'll give you shit to force you to learn what you truly got. And it's scary. It's scary because you're like, God damn, I have nothing. This is the thing. We can talk shit about the church all we want to, but when them motherfuckers get in the bind, do you know the comfort they have to put it in the call on Jesus? Do you know the comfort they got? And once you have that, and you're like, whoa, come on, Osiris, where are you? My aunt, divine goddess. Oh, second. And then it's like, are we back? This bullshit connection. I hope y'all can hear me. So when you get into the thick of shit, that's when the real transformation occurs. Because now, and I'm gonna tell you those numbers, pay attention to numbers all around you. I'm like, I done turned into damn, okay, let me see. Peace, sister, my pay attention to those numbers. I've become like Rain Man, you know, always looking around shit, adding up. One day I'm gonna tell y'all about these recent adventures. You know, that's why I'm telling you. That's why I can, man, hold up, I'm telling you. This shit real. You know? I mean, it even come down to the number of the parking space you park in, the number of the seats you sit in. You know, those, I talked about those satellites the other day. Them satellites be talking to you, giving you messages. You pull up and you look at the number of the parking space. You sit down, look at the number on the armrest where you sit, and they let you know, we here, nigga. $144,000. And I'm not saying this to be boastful, because I'm, I put on and everything, but people who know me. I'm a humble motherfucker. I say thank you, make you want to throw up, because I want you to know I appreciate you when you do something for me. Let me see. Sister My Aunt says 11:11 and 12:12 mostly. You saying those are numbers you seeing? So I'm not saying none of this stuff to be boastful. It's very humbling. Very humbling. And I feel like, I don't feel, I just know it. Read above. I just know that a lot of times your protection be coming from the fact that you're being humble. And I want to clarify what I mean by that. That don't mean that I'll let somebody sit and talk shit to me, because I won't. I ain't taking no bullshit. But I'm humble in that, to me, humility is honesty. I'm gonna be honest with you, you know. And I'm gonna be sincere. And you know, you get shit happens. Shit gets moved out the way for you. You know, it's right when you right there at the edge of the cliff, and that wind is blowing strong. You know, and you got a herd of cattle coming your way to push you right over that cliff. All of a sudden, something happens. And Brother Bobby would say, and I got the book about the Kundalini for a New Age. I think that's the name of it. And they talk about there are devices that will come online when you're under enough threat. Well, they also talk about that in Blavatsky's book, shit, the ISIS Unveiled. She talks about this thing called mishmash. And mishmash, she said, it's enough power where it could destroy an army of 100,000 and their elephants. Well, what are they talking about? They're talking about this substance that's in you, that this same substance that they use. Are we on? Okay, if we're back on, I'll try to continue. The book Atomic Christ by William Henry, he talks about how the Jed Pillar, which is basically the first. I don't know if I'm still on or not. I'll see. This bullshit. Oh, okay. So yeah, they use that as the model. So basically what I'm trying to say is we're in a point now where we're getting pushed past just kind of just going over data, where we're being forced to really be like scientists. Go into the lab and create and experiment and observe, and record our findings. So to your you say you've been seeing these numbers for 3 years now. What do you make of it? Obviously, you're going through some type of transition. You do know. You just gotta just. I got a cousin named Tony Ruth, and Tony Ruth is a jack of all trades but a master of none. Tony Ruth, Tony Ruth. They used to call Tony Ruth the Bondo man, cause you take your car to Tony and you got problems with your paint, you fill that shit up with a bunch of Bondo and paint all over it, and you let a damn gnat land on your car wrong, and that shit'll crack. Where he used to be like, "Bow, pay attention," when he hit him a little lick. But have you asked yourself? One thing I had to learn to do was say, what is it you want me to know? What is it I'm supposed to get out of all of this? Now, me personally, sometimes what'll be the block, like I talked about this the other day. I'm not a person easy. I'm not a quitter by nature. Now, there can be a drawback to that sometimes because by not being a quitter, um, let me see, what's this, Erica? Right on. Uh, by not being a quitter, sometimes your will attached to your ego becomes too strong, which it ain't bad because I mean that's the people who are leaders, the people who don't accept just I'm just gonna just cave in, you know. But when it's time that you need to give up, sometimes it's hard to turn that aspect of yourself off, and it starts blocking you from getting a message that's been clearly conveyed time and time again. And the message is just simply saying, give up, give up, give up, give up. Do you know before, uh, when you got a cavity, before the tooth can be filled, you have to go in, they have to drill to where, as far as that bacteria has infiltrated that tooth, that's how far they got to drill. They have to go in and clean out the decayed tissue, right? And they have to remove the decayed tissue and then clean and hollow out that area of the tooth, and then they can fill it. So, by trying as best you can to let go of maybe how you think something, or maybe the way you think the answers all will come, sometimes that can open the door, and once you get it, once you see kind of like the other side of what you were supposed to get, you're gonna know, oh shit, it was there. And you're gonna start going back and recounting different occasions when the answer was given to you and you didn't get it. The answer's given to you and you don't get it. And you have to, so what does the spirit do? Keep dumping shit on you. Keep dumping shit. Keep dumping shit. Keep dumping shit. And it feels like you're being punished. It feels like not just the whole world, but the whole universe is pulling against you. The whole world's laughing at me. But all it was, in the end, it was all love. That's the crazy shit about it. It was all love. Because it was, you think about those of you who still whoop your child's ass, we were those who got our, not spankings, got our asses whooped. And I'll be honest, I ain't whooping my kids. I ain't doing that shit like my daddy did. But I will spank. But those things were done out of love, at least out of my family. Because what my daddy would do was whoop your ass and then make you sit down and talk. Now you understand why I whooped your ass. It's, when I tell you you're supposed to be in your mama's room, you better be where I tell you to be. Yeah, quit all that damn crying. Here, eat one of these cookies. And see, that was love right there. That was love. Beat my ass and then explain to me this is why. So when you get your answer, the spirit will be whooping your ass, whooping your motherfucking ass. Then when you get your answer, then your spirit gonna start taking you back through your memory bank and be like, remember this? Remember this happened, and you were so stubborn, you didn't catch it, and then this happened, da 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 da, and then that's just like your daddy or your mama going back and telling you why you got punished. Because my daddy would say, don't beat a child and then just leave it at that. After you whoop their ass, sit them down and tell them why. Because that's when they can grow. They don't grow during the whooping. They grow while they're healing from their little pain. Now you can start the teaching process. I'm telling you, Henry Robinson was a cold motherfucker. Hey, he's a god. So yeah. So that's that on that, you know. But you know, like Phil Valentine say, we ain't got nothing but eternity. So, you know, it's all good, you know. You're eternal beings. But uh I've made it to the homestead, and I want to thank you all for joining in for the afternoon drive. And until we meet again, as always, you know, stay down till you get up. And when you get up, stay down. And I'll catch y'all on the top side. You're mighty welcome. Peace.